I see you found our little hiding spot in the universe. Don't get too comfortable. This is a place where you will find those with an experience that's out of this world, or possibly deep within your life. I welcome you to the Oracles with James Tyson. Lean forward and listen. We will pull you into a supernatural journey with guests from around the world, each one experiencing some of the most extraordinary phenomena this wee planet has to offer. Now, here are the Oracles with James Tyson.
Thank you, Liam, and thank you, listener, for tuning into this episode of The Oracles with James Tyson. It's me, James. Today I bring you Alex Matsuo. I'm not really introducing you to her, unless you've never heard of Alex Matsuo, but she is the founder and director of the Association of Paranormal Study out of North Carolina. She holds a master's degree in theater arts from San Diego State University, and while she was out in San Diego years ago, she ran into a couple of ghosts. Well, she's been doing this ever since around 2002. I shouldn't say that. She's been doing it since she saw them when she was a kid. But one of her first books on ghosts was The Haunting of the 10th Avenue Theater in San Diego, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Another one of her books is More Than Ghosts, a guide to working residential cases in the paranormal field. These can all be found on Amazon. The Haunted Actor, an exploration of supernatural belief through theater. And we're going to talk about her latest book, The Brave Mortal's Guide to Ghost Hunting. Again, all found on Amazon. You can go to her website, Alex Matsuo, that's Matsuo, alexmatsuo.com. We're going to bounce around talking to her about some of the investigations she and her crew have been on. Also going to talk about ghosts themselves, the kind of equipment she talks about in her newest book, The Guide to Ghost Hunting. Touch briefly on the Phillips experiment. Now, that was back in 1972 out in Toronto, Ontario, how they actually manifested their own ghost. We'll touch briefly on that because that's an entire show all in itself. We talk about ghost hunting gear. Again, her book, a little bit of the, where she finds ghosts to appear more often than others, like theaters. And she ought to know because she's been around theaters most of her life. She's been constantly in pursuit of knowledge in the paranormal field and activity, and participates in paranormal community while corresponding with fellow investigators around the world. So she's pretty well tapped in. Currently, one of the most sought after researchers investigators in the field. It's taken her all over North America, often asked to speak at various conferences and events. And back in 2014, marked publication of her first book, That Haunted Actor, which is about her relationship between the theater and the supernatural. Around 2015, got another publication out, More Than Ghosts, a guide for the client casework in the paranormal field. These, again, all can be found on Amazon. If you bounce through those, you can follow her on Twitter, alexmatsuo.com. Click on that location, get over to Twitter, follow her on Facebook, and she is now putting out a bunch of little mini films and conversations on YouTube. So go to YouTube, search Alex Matsuo, that's Matsuo, and subscribe to her YouTube channel, which I have, and you'll see a couple of little brief films or little recordings of what she's put up there. She's going to be starting to do a lot more and on the ghost hunting and what she's run into and a few of the basics of residential ghost hunting. So let's bring her in. Alex, how are you today?
I'm doing great, James. How are you?
I am just tickety-boo here on the lower left Canadian coast. You just had your Thanksgiving, and we had ours last month because it's the time change. So hopefully your stuffing is gone, or you can have leftovers for the next 2 weeks, aren't you?
We're trying to take care of that so that we don't have any more leftovers after today, but it's kind of a painful process.
Oh, it always is. So tell me about this new book, The Brave Mortal's Guide to Ghost Hunting.
Yeah, so this is a Updated, modern guide to ghost hunting, meaning it's written for the 21st century. And so it's going to be talking about a lot of things that some of the older books don't talk about, like, ghost hunting apps, the newest technology, and also just some of the ways that ghost hunting has evolved over the decades, and a new way to ghost hunt besides just saying, give us a sign of your presence.
Yeah, that's kind of irritating when our paranormal teams go out, even the ones I'm involved with, we go out and they say, okay, is there a ghost here? Can you knock on the wall? Well, the only reason we're in your house is because the people who lived here see things floating across the room. So knocking on the wall is not a big deal. We know you're here, so move on. You still do the paranormal hunts too, don't you?
Oh, yeah. We're investigating on a regular basis. My team and I, we do a lot of client cases or residential cases at the moment. I don't know what's in the air or in the water, but we have cases coming out of our ears right now, and we're actually starting to move into the holiday season, and usually we're in a lull around this time of year.
Really? You get that's odd, because I know, if we get into the heebie-jeebie part of paranormal, that the veil itself thins October, November. So people start to see, it's like the veil thinning between 3 and 4:30 in the morning, except in about a month period, that mid-October to the end of November-ish, a little over a month, it's thin internationally, and we get a lot more people seeing things. Now, whereabouts are you? You're in North Carolina?
Yep, in the capital of North Carolina, Raleigh.
Raleigh, North Carolina. Oh, just down the street from Mayberry. I know exactly where you are.
Yep, actually, that's right. Yeah. Mayberry is not far from here at all.
Yes, because they used to always, Andy and Barney would always go to Raleigh to see a judge or something. All these young listeners are going, what the hell is he talking about?
And half of them just turned off the show.
Like, what the heck? So you're living in a historical area anyway. Like, you're back in the 1600s, 1700s there. You've got a lot of stuff. Are you close to the water, the ocean?
I'm about 2 hours away from the ocean, so at least to the nearest beach. I'm about 4 hours away from the Outer Banks, so like Kitty Hawk, going into Nag's Head, and I'm about 4 hours away from Charleston, South Carolina. So between 2 to 4 hours, depending which beach you want to go to.
Yeah, Charleston's pretty paranormally busy. I'm just thinking of the different energy sources you have out there, like moving water, rivers, and things like that. That a entity might be able to draw energy from to become visible, and maybe tapping into that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of rivers over here in North Carolina. We have a lot of lakes. I'm not too far from a place called Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is where the Fort Bragg military base is, and there's a big river there known as the Cape Fear River. And actually, we just did a month-long ghost hunt in Fayetteville for October, and it was about a mile away from the Cape Fear River, so I would not be shocked if some of the energies were drawing their juice from that river.
Yeah, I find that anything around a tidal area where the tide comes through two narrow points and creates a lot of that, just the energy of the movement of water, we get a little bit more visibility of what's there anyway. And now, going back to your book and the updates for basically, like you say, the 21st century, with all the fandangly stuff, do you go out, did you try a lot of the kind of like the ghost apps and things like that to kind of see if they worked? Did you go through those few of those things and say, we tried these, I recommend this one over that one? Not
actually, yes,
but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Actually, yes, I did. I did put out some of my own cash to buy some of the really well-known ITC apps like EchoVox, just to see, because one, I'm very skeptical with phone apps because our phones weren't necessarily built to look for ghosts. And then when I think about it, even the technology we use today that and the technology that we started out with, like the EMF meter, even shack hack radios, those weren't originally made to look for ghosts either. And yet now they've evolved to the point where, yes, they're made for ghost hunting. That's where we got the PSB-7 and, Boo Buddy, that the EMF meter inspired. So I did try them out. I'm still skeptical of them just because I've noticed a lot of these apps will record the sounds that they're hearing, aka my voice or my team members' voices, and then as we're listening, we'll actually hear ourselves being echoed back, and I'm like, oh, well, that's not productive.
No, it's not. Oh wow, it's I've got a Boo Buddy and I've got the PSB-7. And I did download a bunch of those ghost apps at one time to try them out, where it shows you like a radar screen and the little red dots kind of floating around you. Or, what's the term, or what's the thing when you ask a question, it actually comes, it's written on your device. It's comes
You mean
back.
like the Ovilus?
Ovilus, yeah. So it comes, it had one of those features on it, and of course it was the words. It turns into a word game. You ask a question, it comes back, what is your name? And it comes back with lavender. Oh, lavender, that's an interesting name. Well, no, I have no idea why it said lavender. And you try to jam that square peg into the round hole of the question you just asked. And you find yourself going off on these wild goose chases, which is absolutely just counterproductive in whatever you're doing. And then I find they're not that accurate, I should say. We'll put it, they're not very accurate. I'm not going to say they don't work at all, because I have no idea. It's just a random word popping out.
Yep. And there's also a possibility maybe I'm just not using it right, because I go to the Facebook groups that are dedicated to these apps and people are sharing their data, and I'm sitting here looking at my app. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I'm doing what people are telling me to do, and I can't take seriously anything that I'm getting. So it's a tough one. I'm still trying to crack Echovox because so many people swear by it. And no offense to the curator of Echovox. I mean, definitely no offense at all. I still can't get it. And I've even tried some of the settings that people have sent me, and I listen to it, and I'm like, I still just hear my own voice after several minutes. I don't hear anything that indicates to me that this is a word that's coming out. So, and maybe it's because I keep debunking myself along the way. Maybe that's where I'm getting it wrong.
Overthinking it, maybe? Just keep reading into something that's not there. Alex, you don't want to do that. Well, it's hard. It is hard, especially using all these newer devices and, pulling it out of the box, throwing the batteries in it, and doing, well, what I would do, throw away the instructions. But, even going through the instructions and trying to get the thing to work. I find the EMF meters, the little gray or black ones, the cheap, they used to be really cheap until people were buying them to use them for paranormal investigations. They used to be $30. Now they're like $60 or $70.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Have you heard about the repackaged cat toy that's like being sold as like ghost hunting equipment now?
No. What is that?
Oh gosh. Okay. So we'll see if this makes it into the show, because oh my gosh. So I don't know if you know who Kenny Biddle is, but he was the one that kind of got me who got me interested in this story. And like, I'm not even kidding, it is a cat toy. Like, this is a cat toy, and I need to see what it's called. Maybe I just won't say the name for the purpose of getting sued. But somebody, and actually I have to give them a lot of credit for this. It's a great business idea, because it's basically a cat toy that it reacts to like your motion. Well, I mean, it's a cat toy. It's meant to get a cat's attention so that the cat will hit it. It's light activated and vibration activated, and it's supposed to, it'll react to any sort of movement that's around it. And I think the person who got it only paid like maybe 50 cents or a couple dollars per ball, and now they're being resold for like $15. Like, it's it's crazy. Like, like the person who came up with this is literally getting like 200% back on this. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It looks like it's like $1 for each one. So yeah. Yeah. And then it's being resold for like, yeah, about right now, $10. Well, $10 at the time that this was being made. So, you know, get something for $1, sell it back for $10. I mean, you're making $9 on each thing. That is a great
That is a good idea. That's, yeah. You know, I find if you find yourself a ping pong ball, put it in the middle of a room and ask a ghost to move it, and it might move, then you get that ghost ping pong ball.
Right?
Sell them for like $10 each.
I mean, it's crazy, and people buy it, and people will leap to it. And you're totally right. And that's a big thing that I talk about in this book is you don't have to spend a ton of money on ghost hunting equipment. You don't have to get like the latest and greatest technology because most of it's used for entertainment purposes only. It may light up for no apparent reason, but it's because it's meant to entertain you. So I just tell people, you know, going in with your own senses is great. If you want to spend like $30 on an audio, like on a good audio recorder, awesome. If you want to use the voice recorder on your phone, that's fine too. Just make sure, you know, all of the other apps and everything are closed. And, you know, I mean, ghost hunting is accessible for all sorts of audiences. And if you want to pay a couple $1,000s for equipment, more power to you. Just be super careful if you're going to try to pass that off as like legit scientific data.
Yes, because there's such a science in this, isn't there?
Because we've totally figured out what a ghost is. I mean, we know what it's made of. We know where it comes from. We totally nailed it.
I did a documentary at a Legion, the Billy Bishop Legion in Vancouver, British Columbia, and it's one of those places where all the veterans would go. And so it's got plaques and everything all over the wall and mugs hanging, and it's an incredibly active location. And the guy doing the documentary says, "So, what kind of cool equipment did you bring?" I said, "I got some string." He said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I just hang string." And I asked if there's anybody there just kind of to move it. He says, "Well, what if the air conditioning kicks in?" I said, "Well, we'll turn it off. We don't have the heater on, or there's no doors opening and closing, and it's just hanging there straight until we ask somebody to move it." And it was funny. We had it hanging there, and we had all the tape recorders around. And it was filming it, and of course, nothing moves. We play the tapes back. We get EVPs of a guy saying, "Don't touch a string." I was like, okay. So we're asking the ghost to touch a string, and there's some grumpy old ghost telling all the other ones, "Don't touch a string." Which was kind of cool.
Gosh.
And there was only 2 males there out of the entire investigative group, and one was behind the camera, and the other one was me making notes. So these are the technical things you can bring for ghost hunting. You can get and I can sell that string to you for $10 for just 2 feet of string.
What a deal!
What is it? What do you guys find that works the best when you go out and do your investigations?
In terms of communication or collecting evidence?
Well, if you're communicating, we'll go collecting evidence.
Okay. So we have cameras. I find cameras are really great, you know, and I'm talking just like your regular, you know, camcorder. If it has night vision, yeah, you should probably do that. Maybe get a few like infrared lights just so that the camera can actually see what's going on without blinding you. Let's see. I mean, really just going with the old-fashioned stuff. I mean, audio recorder. I do have a hat that has 6 microphones rigged to it, and it's super sensitive. Like, I can literally hear stuff happening down the street. That's how sensitive these microphones are. And I find that I've gotten some really interesting evidence from that because I'll be, like, out in the middle of nowhere at a location, and I will hear voices respond to our questions. And so I find that to be really interesting, especially when we were at St. Albans in Radford, Virginia. We were talking about which way we should go. Like, you know, we were like in this foyer area, And while we were talking, I kept hearing like a weird sound on the hat, because it's rigged with headphones too, so I can actually hear as it's going. And I kept hearing the scratchy voice, but I couldn't make out what it was. And then I went back and went through the recording, and there was this really scruffy, hoarse voice of this, I'm assuming was man, going, "Just keep going. Just keep going." Like, he just kept saying that. And I'm like, wow, that's that's interesting. So, and that hat was made for me by a Canadian named John Mitzi. Really great guy, very smart in the world of like audio, just overall audio. Let's see. We also use the flare, which is the it's the temperature camera, so it can actually gauge like
infrared FLIR.
Yep. Yeah, FLIR. Yep. So it basically, looks at the environment based on temperature. So it'll be certain colors depending on what the temperature is. And we actually find some really crazy things on there. Like, a part of me wants to say it's pareidolia, but then I look at this, I'm like, nope, that's a person. That's a person right there. Like, you can't deny it when I see like the temperature and the way the patterns are. And it's like, if I can see nose, eyes, ears, a mouth, hair, and I see an outfit, I'm like, nope, that's a person right there. So,
yep. I used to teach the use of those, but back when we had them in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, they were $20,000 each. So
they're still pricey.
Oh yeah, it's because of that the lens it's using. It's not a glass lens, because they don't. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, is they don't see through things. You can't. If you, a friend of mine bought one to hook up to his iPhone to kind of the poor man's one. And the first time he had it, he was looking through his room, and he said, "Oh my God!" And he could see this being standing in front of him. And I said, "You're looking at the window. You're looking at yourself. It reflects the heat. It doesn't look out a window. It reflects the heat of your image is being reflected back at you. So you're looking at yourself, and you can see that in a shiny piece of metal, in some doors, depending what the paint is like on it too. So yeah, they're very, very interesting. And once you get used to what the different colors are on a thermal imager, then you can see a lot. Those things pick up a lot of information, especially and people talk about the cold spots in a room. If you get a cold spot, look at it through a thermal imager. It's amazing.
Yep. It's incredible. And I find that to be more reliable than, anything with like audio and on a regular audio or a video camera, because it's thermal, it's temperature based. Like, you can't really argue with that. So, especially if you're looking at a wall that's fairly consistent in temperature, of course there'll be a little bit of variables, but if there's like a hot spot on there or a spot that's like extremely cold, and it's the same insulation behind that wall down the line, then it's like, how do you explain that?
Yeah. The other things too is, you've really got to look into it. If you do see that hot spot on a wall, what else are you going to use to figure out what is causing that hot spot? Was there, was somebody leaning against it? Because I can put my handprint on a wall, walk away, and you can look at the wall and you'll see my handprint. I actually used it. I looked at a school field once, and you could see the footprints where a guy had run across and moved the dew that was on the grass. Where you couldn't see it with a flashlight or the naked eye, but when you looked at the thermal imagery, you could see the guy's footprints trail right across the school field.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so it does. And that's the trick. If you have one of these things, use it all. Get out, even when you're not looking for ghosts. Just get out and use it, and see what you can see with it, and get used to the different images that come through from different temperatures, whether you're around water, motor vehicles and things like that. A friend of mine got sent down from Vancouver, British Columbia to the Caribbean to look at the side of a boat that was out of the water. And the government said, we think there might be some secret compartments in here. And he went down, looked at it and said, half the boat is all broken up into secret compartments. and you could see it through the boat. It was the way the heat was absorbed into the material, and the different levels of heat being absorbed in different thicknesses of the hull and the frame of the boat and things. So yeah, you can definitely tell what is not normal and what is normal. So they are fun to work with, but just practice. Get out there and use it as much as you can. Mm-hmm. So that's cool to have one of those. You must be rich.
It is. No, we cheated, and a few of us got the phone attachment, but it works.
Oh yeah, they do work.
It works. I mean, they're like the cheapest one's about $200. I think there is one that's closer to $500, but if I'm going to spend that much, I might as well just get like the lowest grade camera, but which is about $349. You can tell I've been keeping track.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for like things on eBay and last minute deals and whatnot. But yeah, we got the phone attachments, and like I mean, now. For anyone that's listening, don't use any like thermal imaging app on your phone, because your camera is not equipped to pick up those things.
Yeah,
so.
It's not a hoax. It doesn't help. It's the actual lens itself that makes it, and that lens is made out of a material that is extremely expensive. Yeah. So that's why this stuff is as expensive as it is, because it's all on the lens. And I know when I was teaching the course, that was the big thing. You have a housing for a lens that you don't want anyone to break, because that's where the $20,000 was going. And these things are the size of looks like a video camera.
Yeah.
They're the coolest things. Just don't break one.
Oh my gosh.
We are talking to Alex Matsuo. She is an author and a whole bunch of other stuff. A ghost hunting kind of person. Her new book, The Brave Mortal's Guide to Ghost Hunting, is out. You can get that on Kindle or in paperback. Go to Alex's website, actually. I always want to buy stuff from your website. If we go to your website, Alex, does that take us, if we want to buy the book, does it automatically take us to...
it'll take you to Amazon.
It does take... Oh, crap. So you get 60 cents for every book you sell. That's good, because Amazon gets the rest. Sometimes they say, hey, go to the website, buy it there. Buy it from Alex. She'll get the $1. No, sorry. Now
I am selling signed copies as well, so which I will get a little bit more if all of y'all are into supporting indie authors. Yay! I do sell paperbacks from my own stash as well. The only difference is you're going to have to pay for shipping. I'm not Amazon where I can manipulate USPS and UPS and FedEx, so you would have to pay for shipping.
You don't have drones yet from your house?
Not yet. I'm working on it, but I'm trying to get the world domination thing first.
And again, that's alexmatsuo.com. Its last name is Matsuo. alexmatsuo.com, and you can see what she's up to there. And your other books, are they still available?
Yeah. Let's see. More Than Ghosts is available still. The Haunted Actor is. There's going to be a new edition of The Haunting of the 10th Avenue Theater coming out soon that I'm going to be putting out independently. But you can get the first edition now for really cheap from like used ghost stores, from used bookstores. I'm going to add maybe one or two more stories to the 10th Avenue Theater book, just with some of the things that happened after the first edition came out. Some really interesting things, actually. I'm not going to give it away because I want you all to buy the book. But I know, right?
Salesperson, you. That's cool.
Totally right.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's I love reading. Well, we've talked about this. I love reading books that are nonfiction and at least have pictures in them. But at least you have nonfiction books, and it's actually kind of fun. You go out are invited by people. Let me just rephrase that. When you go out with your guys or your team to do a paranormal investigation, are you primarily going out on invite from a property owner?
Oh, yeah, definitely. We don't go anywhere without permission, and that's something I really emphasize heavily in the book. Gone are the days where you can kind of sneak into like the abandoned building. I mean, well, maybe not gone. I mean, you can still do it, but I wouldn't. Don't do what 16-year-old Alex did, sneaking out at night and going ghost hunting. It's a marvel that I was not arrested or caught or just anything. But yeah, always get permission from the owner. My team, we specifically specialize in residential cases. So people will call us if they're having or they believe they're having a paranormal issue, and we'll come in, we'll assess the situation. And if it's something we can debunk, we are honest with the property owner and we say, hey, we think it's actually this. Like maybe it's, hey, your stairs are just rickety, or hey, no one's walking in your or in your attic. The trees are hitting your roof, when it's windy, things like that, because we don't want to validate something that isn't there. So, and giving validation to clients is a big deal. So we take very careful consideration into that. So, and then sometimes we'll do like the big public locations as well. They are a little expensive, and they're getting more expensive because I think the whole resurgence in paranormal reality TV is a good moneymaker right now. So
yeah, I'm not a fan of those. It's it's one of those things where I don't believe, like especially like old asylums and things like that, where. Mm-hmm. We're going to set up a bar down here. It's going to cost you, and this is legit, it's going to cost you $350 to go in, and you'll definitely get a ghost talking to you, and here's the pay bar, and you get a t-shirt, and go in and poke the bear. Well, these people were abused in life, and now we're going to go poke at them in death with a bunch of drunken yahoos with microphones. So I get a little bit ticked off with some of them. Some are still pretty legit. We had a few here where you could, the only reason you're paying is because they have an employee that will stay later and kind of stand there while you make sure you don't take stuff from the museum. But so those I find a little more legit than somebody buying an old hospital and opening it up for turning it into a haunted house or a haunted location for Halloween, and inviting paranormal investigators in. Because honestly, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel if a place is haunted and we know it's haunted, I don't have to go look for ghosts. First of all, I believe in ghosts. And if it's haunted and you tell me all these stories about people seeing them, then I take that legit from you. So the reason I would go in there, and this is just me, which pees off a lot of people who have these kind of, here, come to our location and for $50 we'll let you go in and poke fun at the ghosts. I go in there and I cross them over.
Good for you. Good for you.
And honestly, we can do that remotely. So if you piss me off and you have a place in Saskatoon, Alaska, or some place in the other side of the world, I have a couple of psychics who remotely will go in and we'll have a chat with them and cross them over. So, in fact, I shouldn't say we didn't do this. This was, I can't remember. I didn't tell you this story. I was in on the Queen Mary in June 26th. And it was a good deal, $99 a night. And I got 2 nights in there because... heck, that was, why not? And my very first night, 4:00 in the morning, I get up, and it's June 26th. It's hot. I get up because it was freezing cold in my room. So I get up, kind of half asleep, shut the porthole or close it a bit, get back into bed, and I'm just, because it's cold, I pull the covers up. Well, all the covers get pulled off and thrown onto the floor. So I think, awkward.
Okay.
Because I've already built the bubble, you go to bed, do that little meditation, leave me alone. I just want to get some sleep.
Right.
So I get up and I'm pissed. I am mad. And I said, okay, you got my attention. We'll talk about this in the morning. So the next day I get up, get some EVPs, basically, the guy wants to leave. Okay, let me sleep well tonight. We'll deal with this. So a few weeks ago, or a month or so ago, a psychic friend of mine, Skeeter Wellhouse, we did it on one of the radio shows here, or one of my podcasts. We actually went back and she did a remote view and found the guy, William, who'd like to be called Billy, died on the ship somewhere between 1939 and 1945, back when it was a military troop carrier, and we crossed him over. Now,
oh, nice.
People say, oh, did you get permission from the people of the Queen Mary? No, I didn't. I got permission from the ghost who didn't want to be there anymore.
It's nuts. It's nuts. I remember I went to a few places. I'm not going to say what those places are, just because I'd like to still have access to them, and they know how I feel about this. They, in the paperwork that you sign, like part of your liability release and your contract and everything, saying, you're not going to burn the place down, there are clauses in there stating that you can't cross the ghosts over. And I kind of look at them and I say, how would you prove this in a court of law? Like...
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, how would you prove this? This opens a whole can of worms. Like, first you have to prove that there's ghosts there, and then two, you have to prove that there's been a change in activity, and that's because that the ghost crossed over. And two or three, how are you keeping them bound here? Like, at what? So yeah. No, I have similar feelings about that.
Yeah. The first thing in court would be, okay, can you prove a ghost exists?
Yep. Then the case would get thrown out right there.
Yeah, and we can.
The case would get thrown out.
or the case will get thrown out unless, like, a Bible goes flings across the room, and they go, okay, that worked. Now, but yeah, that's the thing is, you've got a energy that you're removing. Is it a conscious energy? I asked that question in Gettysburg. We went to with one of the Gettysburg ghost tours. A bunch of tourists literally went to a location in town where in the 80s a woman was murdered there. And
the Harmon murder house. Yeah, I know exactly where you were.
Okay. We get there and I got some stuff out of the kitchen area. I guess that's where she got shot, at the back door where her boyfriend came in, and who accidentally shot her like 3 times in the stomach with a rifle that had to be cocked numerous times. He said, it went off by accident 3 times or 2 times. Anyway, whole other weird story. But they said, I asked in front of all the other tourists, well, have you had anybody come in and if she doesn't want to be here, find out and then maybe just get her to cross over? And all the tourists, like, big smiles on their faces, and they turned and looked at the 2 people putting on the tour, who looked at me like I hit him in the head with a 2x4, and they said, no. I said, why not? Well, because then there'd be nobody here to take this is how we make money. And that's the conundrum. You're making money off of somebody who is trapped. Yep. Yeah, so those are the kind of people, and I'm not going to do it because I said I wouldn't, but, unless I get in a really crappy mood, maybe I will. We'll have remote view of the place, but that whole town is it's just the way it is. It's like you
can edit out my saying the name of it too. I was like, I know exactly where you were.
No, it's fine. I couldn't, I have no problem saying it, but it's actually, because it's so haunted, they can't rent it out to a family to live in this house, so it's rented by the paranormal groups for tours.
I mean, they probably meet the expense of that in the first weekend of every month. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, they've got to get people in there. Did you go to that barn that was in Gettysburg too? That was the Confederate field hospiel, Jackson.
There's a lot. There's a lot of barns.
It was part of the same tour, but that was a really cool place.
We went to a farmhouse that was on the Union side, but there was, I think there was a barn offered on that, but I don't think we took it. I know we went to a farmhouse on the Union side, but I was also I've been to Gettysburg so many times. I did go to the Daniel Lady Farm one year, which I think that might have been Confederate. On the Confederate side, I'll have to look. Whoever's a Civil War history buff is listening to this right now, probably writhing in pain. No regrets.
Yeah.
And no regrets.
Farnsworth.
Yeah, no.
Farnsworth House.
I've been to the Farnsworth house. I haven't done a ghost hunt there, but I did a ghost tour, and we actually saw a guy laying in the attic, and I honestly thought it was an actor until I went back in there to prove my point, and he was not there anymore. And I'm like, oh,
Interesting.
okay. Yeah, I'm like, well, that's different. And because in the attic, there's not really another way in. It's one entrance. And I looked behind the seats. I looked everywhere. Could not find the guy at all. So, but apparently that's a thing. A guy's been seen, like, I don't know if he's dead or he's taking a nap, but I know there was a lot of heavy fire that area went through. So, yeah.
That's crazy. A friend of mine, Sharon, excuse me, Susan Day is. What did I say? Susan Day? Sorry, Susan Day. Wasn't she in the Partridge Family? Anyway, she's in. Where does she live? In Scottsdale right now, and she grew up in a battlefield hospital in out east, and it was a transition point. Like as the battle moved, the Union would take it, and then the Confederacy would take it. But it was a hospital, and she grew up. That was the house she was, like, well, not born in, but raised in, and it's very interesting because her Sharon Day, sorry, not Susan Day, she grew up with seeing the dark spots on the floor. It was the blood from the soldiers that had soaked into the wood, and she just assumed everybody saw the soldiers in the house.
Oh, wow.
And just never talked about them. But very, very intuitive, interesting, also an author, and does what's that term, where you touch something and you can tell who had it before. Yeah, that thing.
Clairvoyance? I don't know if
it starts with a C. It's
clairvoyance?
No, it's but
no, it's I know which one you're talking about.
So she would find old artifacts in the yard, going back to the American Indians, and find a belt buckle, and she could look at it and said, "Oh, this belonged to Bob, who was running across the field when it fell off," and had a little collection of those. It's very, very interesting place to grow up if you're intuitive and actually sees this kind of stuff. But holy cow. Those hospitals, those field hospitals, with all the energy and all the pain that was going through, and you look back in modern history, and I'm going to include the Civil War in modern history. It's one of the ones where people were really badly hurt. Like when I say badly hurt compared to other wars, you didn't the ammunition and the type of weapons they used. They fired ball bearings basically at you, which would rip an arm off. It wasn't a bullet that would go in and out. It would take a good chunk of your arm with it, and then there was the gangrene setting in and the rotting of the meat, and so a lot of very high stress and high energy. High vibrations were coming out of those areas, so it left such an amazing imprint in those locations.
Yeah, I went to a Civil War battlefield that's about, I want to say, an hour or so away from me. It's the battlefield Averasboro, and when I went there, one of the people there that ran the museum, this really old man. Old men tend to like me. I'm kind of like, I get to do things that I normally anyone else would have privileges to. But he actually opened the case and let me hold these bullets from both Union and Confederate, and those things are heavy. I didn't realize how heavy they were.
Yeah.
I held like 5 or 6 bullets. Those of you who are friends with me on Facebook, it's actually on my Facebook page. And I actually had some really crazy feelings as I was holding them. And I'm about as psychic as a brick. So
you think so, do you?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure. But when I was holding them, like, I got this really intense pain on the right side of my head, but like the front side, like on the right side of my forehead. And I'm like, okay, I'm feeling something here. I don't know if I'm feeling where the bullet went, or I'm feeling the person who shot it, or I'm just having a weird reaction to these old bullets. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. And I held like 5 or 6 of them all in one hand, and it was actually getting pretty heavy. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, it was nuts. And, you know, the guy explained to me like what each bullet did, where it hit based on what it looked like. And, yeah, it was pretty nuts. So, I mean, those things hurt.
Yeah, you could lose an eye. Psychometry. Yeah. I knew it started with a C. It's a P, psychometry. That's what it's called when you can touch something and read into it. Maybe you're maybe a little more psychic than you think you are.
Psychic, yeah, maybe. You know, I've had people tell me that. I just haven't really explored that part yet. I definitely know I have some sort of empathic abilities going on, because, ooh, man, if you're feeling emotional and I'm standing next to you, I'm going to cry with you. Like, it's or I'll look at somebody in the grocery store, they'll just catch my attention, and I just get overwhelmed with like a lot of feelings. Yeah, like there was a girl, that teenage girl with her mom at the self-checkout, and I don't know if her mom was trying to show her how to use the self-checkout, but she was getting really overwhelmed, the girl was, and she just started crying, and I didn't even know what was happening until I turned around, but I started crying too. And I'm like, oh, okay. that's new. This happened in the past 6 months, so I don't know if there's something going on, but
here's my test that I'll do for you. Do you, when you dream, do you know you're dreaming while you're dreaming?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, that is the dictionary definition of a lucid dream. A lot of people think lucid dreams are all rainbows and explosions and flying with unicorns and like something really bright and fluffy and all that. It's just knowing you're dreaming while you're dreaming. Do you still wake up between 3 and 4:30 in the morning?
Yep, I do.
Okay, then. So those are 2 big check marks for being...
Oh, great.
Right?
Yep.
The other one is post-puberty. Your friends would come to you and say, Alex, you know, I feel so good after talking to you. You give the best hugs. You're the best listener. And they go bouncing off feeling really good. And you go home and just want to be left in your room by yourself. Mm-hmm. My parents don't understand me. Your anxiety level is extremely high. Yeah. So that's the other one. So those 3 right off the bat is empath. Also, it's my belief we are the only ones who suffer from PTSD. Because of, it's not what we do or what we've seen, it's but how others treat us from seeing or for what we've seen or what we've done. Because we like making people feel good.
Right.
So if we're in a job, and like as me as a policeman, or if let's say you're in the military and you see something horrid and you go to your boss and say, look, I need a couple of days off, and they say, suck it up, be a man, you don't need, and it affects you. If they give you a couple of days off, you can deal with it and come back. But it's that reaction from a person of authority in your life that is negative towards you affects you a lot deeper than somebody who's not that high of a vibration. Also, we attract narcissistic people. We attract people who just want to be with us and just drain our energy out, which is a lot of fun to be around. But yeah, those 3 that waking up between 3 and 4. You know why you wake up between 3 and 4:30 in the morning? Okay. When you were a little kid, you would wake up and probably see shadows in your room. And you would pull the covers over your head and say, leave me alone. And they did. They left you alone. Unless they were children ghosts. Those are human ghosts that have been following you around all day, tapping you on the shoulder, saying, Alex, hey, Alex, can you give me a hand here? Hey, Alex, I really like being around you because of your energy. Well, when the veil thins between, this is a theory, veil thins between 3 and 4:30 in the morning, instead of just like whispering in your ear and you can't hear them, they literally will shake your shoulders and you wake up and go, oh, I have to pee. But that's what it is. It's that connection. And again, the veil thinning in October, November too. We'll get a little more anxious. You walk around vibrating because there's so much energy, all these lower, because a dead person's a lower vibration than we are.
Right.
So they like being around the higher vibration people. They actually see us as a brighter light than other people, and they'll hang out with us.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, you're an empath, which means your abilities to be any of the clairs is incredibly high. Like you may be, it may get switched on. Mine was 2012 when someone pointed out to me I was an empath and I could read oracle cards, and I'm looking at her like, yeah, right. But mind you, she knew everything else about me without ever even meeting me before. My mother's name, what she looked like, all the stuff I was going through at work. She knew the things I saw when I was younger were ghosts, and she pointed those out and then said, oh yeah, you can read oracle cards because you are this. And I'm looking at her going, okay, well, everything you said beforehand was 100% accurate. So now when you talk about me being able to read oracle cards and things like that, so I'm going to have to buy into that being accurate too. And within 3 months I was reading cards for people. So
oh wow,
don't think you're going to get through this life without having another little ascension or two and getting switched on higher. So
great.
Great.
So excited.
Yeah. What got you into, now that I've given you kind of that little background, what actually got you into going to look and try to communicate with dead people?
Well, I had experiences when I was a kid, unsurprisingly. And my mother was very much against anything paranormal or anything related, in her eyes, related to the occult in the house. So, and even like the Goosebumps books or Are You Afraid of the Dark on Nickelodeon, I couldn't watch it. I couldn't read it. So when you tell a kid they can't do something, I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to do it with a lot of passion. And so I just started reading the books, while I was at school or I went to the library. And when I was old enough to drive a car, I was going out and going to the local cemetery, and which was right down the block from the Whaley House in San Diego, California. So but then something came at me when I was about 17, 18 years old, and it scared me so much that I ended up sleeping in my mom's room for like 6 months. And it was terrifying. Oh, wow. And at the time, I mean, this was 2004, so Ghost Hunters had come out, but the whole like oversaturation of paranormal teams was not really a thing yet, or at least just a team that was accessible. So we ended up calling in somebody from the Greek Orthodox Church who came over and did a blessing on my bedroom. Although I don't know how much it worked, because the woman literally like left for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then came back with this big industrial sized spray bottle, and it was full of holy water. And she said, make sure you do a sign of the cross before you go to bed each night. So, alrighty. So, for years, whenever I slept in that room, I had to have the TV on, just some sort of like light and maybe some white noise a little bit. I've only just recently started sleeping with all the lights off again when I'm completely by myself. If one of my cats or my boyfriend's in the room, and yeah, I can sleep in the dark. But if I'm by myself, I usually have to have something on. But yeah, so I realized there's probably other people going through this, and there's not really anyone there to help them. So after I got my master's degree in 2011, I started shadowing some teams over the summer just to see what they were doing. I went to a few paranormal meetups. I took what I liked from each one and I created my own team out of it. So, I've been looking for ghosts since I was 16, but it really wasn't until I was about 25 that I started a team dedicated to residential cases.
And when you say residential cases, again, that was by request. That would be people saying, "Hey, I've got I've got a knocking upstairs, and sometimes we see a shadow." Those kind of residential requests.
Yep.
Very cool. Now, if I call you up and say, "Look, there's every so often I see a lady in a blue dress at the top of the stairs," and you come to my house, what do you do?
So we have a screening process. So you fill out the application. My case manager calls you and asks you questions based on that application, and she will assess and decide if it's a case that we can be helpful with. Spoiler, if you put down that you're not open to having your case debunked, there's a good chance we might not take that case. Because we do need some sort of open-mindedness when it comes to our work. And so we'll go in. If there's children, we usually request that the children are not there, because even if they know about it, because we just don't want to have our presence just be validation that there's something there. And for kids, when they see ghost hunters coming into their house, they automatically think, a lot of times they automatically think, oh, my house is haunted. The ghost hunters are here. Here we go. So, and plus, it's also a liability thing. But anyway, so I'll come in. I will tour the place to make sure it's safe for my team. Usually we'll have the house vacated so that my psychic mediums can go in and do a reading. I don't tell my psychic mediums anything about the case. If I can avoid it, I don't even have them get an address, because I don't want them to, do research on their own, or let alone remote view the place, Right. So they'll do a reading. They'll tell me what they're feeling. I'll either validate or debunk whatever they're saying, because I don't want them to go down the wrong path. And, they might do another reading after they've talked to me. And then depending on how it goes, they'll talk to the client. And then one or two things will happen. We'll either advise and say, hey, based on this, we think this is X, Y, and Z. A lot of times when we're doing out-of-town cases, we will do like an overnight investigation, because it's more productive of our time. If it's something local and it's literally like, hey, there's an old lady that comes down the stairs every morning at 3 a.m., well, guess where I'm going to be at 3 a.m.? I'm going to be standing at the foot of those stairs watching that little old lady come down the staircase. So we'll either do an investigation, or we'll just, depending on what the client wants, we'll give advice, and we'll help them implement a resolution if they want to get rid of it. Or sometimes they just want to know that something's there and they don't want to feel crazy anymore. We do get a good amount of those.
Now, do you use psychics on all your investigations?
I try to, yeah. It's just an extra tool.
Yeah, it's I can't see doing it once I used a psychic in a paranormal investigation. I can't see any reason why not to anymore. It just takes so long, and you get into that here. If there's somebody here, you want to knock on the wall, or what is your name? Why are you here? Or, are you with the house? Are you with the land? What is your reason you're being here? Blah, all that stuff. When the psychic can literally, and I've done through either having them there with us or having them remote view on the phone while I'm there, and they're and in the remote view on the phone, they're describing the room you're standing in. Yeah, which is kind of freaky. It's like, hey. in a public building like the Legion we were in, she's describing the room as what it looked like in 1940, because she's being guided by the cook from 1940. And I say, well, you're right in the shape of the room, but it's not a kitchen anymore. And she said, oh, well, then I have to get somebody else to ask. And somebody else came through and brought her up to like now. And then she started describing all the different plaques on the wall and where the seatings were and all that. And then we go, okay, yeah, legit, you're in the right place. And then from there we get into, okay, pick a ghost to talk to and let us hear about what's going on here. And it cuts through a lot of those hours of having to go through things or having to, listening to those. Oh, what's that little box that makes all the noise and scans? Is that Ovilus or? Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're listening to that, and you've got that going, and then you're going to have to take it home, plug it in the computer, listen to it, and basically go deaf as it's sweeping through all those channels, trying to figure a word coming out in it. But it sure cuts through a lot of the crap if you have a trusted psychic. And that's the other thing too, you got to believe in psychics. But then again, we believe in ghosts, so that's an easy
I was
jump,
about to say, if you believe in ghosts, I mean, and you don't believe in psychics, then we need to sit down and talk, because there's a few things I need to try to understand.
Hey, from all your experience with psychics and your experience in chatting with ghosts, what do you think happens to us when we die?
The more that I've become familiar with death and, talking to ghosts and psychics, it seems we go to this other realm of our surroundings. I hate to use this reference, but some people compare it down to Stranger Things. I don't think it's that creepy and dramatic, but I think we go someplace where one, working out that we're dead. Two, I think, because I've heard you could take like 3 days to like adjust to being a spirit and being in a different form of existence. I think, though, in this other realm that we go to, I think it does mirror what our world is now, because that's how we're getting hauntings. And I feel like, as we go, as people, ghosts, I tend to refer to ghosts as people because ghosts are people. Newsflash to anyone listening to this. They're looking for somebody that's going to understand them and hear them, So I think, too, you can cross over. I don't know what we cross over to. Some people think it's heaven or hell, or it's just the light. But I've also been told once you cross over, you can come back. So I feel like maybe crossing over to the light is maybe a form of heaven, and we just come back and check in on our loved ones. I can accept the fact that we still exist in this world after we die, and we just are in a more energetic, spiritual form, and that's often invisible. So, yeah.
So you have lots of investigation to do once you die.
Yep. Once that happens, man, it's on.
it's a conundrum that, of course, almost drives a lot of people who are out there wanting to talk to ghosts, and it's getting answers to questions that we usually can't answer until someone's pulled our plug. Mm-hmm. So whether or not we're ever going to get those answers or not, or whether or not we're allowed to get those answers, who knows? Right. You're talking about going to the light. It was funny. We crossed over a lady from the 1800s, a Chinese lady. So she would have been born in the late 1700s, died in the mid to like probably no later than 1870. And she was in her 80s when she died. But the psychic who crossed her kind of got dead quiet, and I said, what's going on, and she said, I'm feeling really wobbly, I don't know what's going on. And then she said, oh, I'm standing on a boat. I said, what do you mean you're standing on a boat? And she described it as like a little punt, like a little duck hunting punt. Mm-hmm. And she said, I'm in a river. And she said, oh, the lady's crossing the river. So she crossed, the lady we were crossed in what her belief system was.
Oh, wow.
That she crossed a river. And it was the first time we ran into somebody who didn't go to a light or walk towards what was obviously a very bright exit. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting. That was kind of cool. It's lady, and she wouldn't leave until she had a tea set and wrapped it in a cloth or silk or something, and then she was ready to go, and then crossed the river. So that was kind of cool. That was the first time, and everyone else in the house we crossed went to a light in the same house, but this lady, because she had been, from that time in history and her belief system, she just crossed a river.
Wow. That's amazing. And that kind of goes about, like, we have our own customized spiritual realm, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, our belief system, we cross to what our belief system lets us, because we're supposed to cross. And if we think we're going to cross a river and all we see is a light, then we're thinking, maybe I shouldn't go.
Yep.
And we show ourselves what makes us comfortable in crossing.
Right. Which makes sense. I mean, like you said, they want us to cross over, so. Whoever they is. No, that's another rabbit hole.
Go to alexmatsuo.com and check out her stuff. Also, let's talk about your YouTube channel. You're putting out some how to ghost hunt videos on YouTube. And again, if you go to just Google YouTube Alex Matsuo and go there, Alex Matsuo. What a great name, Matsuo. But you're the Japanese person with the coolest red hair, Alex Pine Tree.
Thanks,
Alex Pine Tree.
That's true. My last name does mean pine tree.
Yep. Yeah. I grew up in a Japanese community on this side of the water here. It's kind of cool. You need to throw some more of these videos out, how to ghost hunt or ghost hunting for the newbies. Yeah, get those out there and share your experiences and stuff. I see you've got quite a few videos out right now, and they go all the way back to let's see.
Some of them, most of them are singing based a little bit, or it's me farting while doing yoga. There's that one. Oh,
excellent. We can do that. Yeah, you'll probably get more hits on the farting while doing yoga one than Alex.
Yeah, I've gotten a decent amount of hits on that one.
Alex is a thespian, which is not a sexual connotation at all. Thespians are the thespian girl. That is she's an actress, and do you still do theater where you are now?
Yeah, I do. I haven't done a show in a couple years just because, like, health and life and stuff, but I'm hoping to get back into it. Maybe summertime. We'll see. We'll see once my schedule clears up and everything. So, yeah. That's
kind of cool. And that's one of the books I talked to you once before, and you wrote a book on the 10th Avenue Theater in San Diego. And hauntings there. Can you tell my listener a little bit about your experience running into ghosts in the theater?
Oh, gosh. Well, almost every theater I've been to has been haunted. And I'm actually not surprised at all, because theaters are literally like a energy juice bar for ghosts. Yep. I mean, you got the lights, the sound, all of the electrical energy. And then you also have all of the human energy as well. There's a gross amount of energy from the actors. Melodrama takes energy, and you also have the energy coming in from the audience. So there's this exchange of energy during performances where the actor is putting energy out, the audience is accepting that energy and also putting out their own energy, like applause and their reactions to the moments that they're seeing. And yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised at all that theaters are haunted. I would be surprised if I ran into a theater that was not haunted. Yeah. I would be like, what's wrong with this place? So, I've encountered all sorts of ghosts. I've a lot of child spirits in theaters, which actually doesn't surprise me that much, because, I mean, theaters are entertaining places to be. And this is really far-reaching out there, but sometimes I think with all of the energy that actors put into creating a character, I sometimes wonder if that becomes residual energy after the show is over. almost borderlining Philip experiment type things, because that is a lot of energy to put into a fictional or even a character, or even a character that's based on a real story, on a true person. I sometimes wonder, like, what happens to all that energy after the show's over, and does it still survive after the curtains have closed?
Yeah, it's one of the most haunted locations that I've run into. It's in the top 3 or 4 with schools, hospitals, and theaters, where, you know, if you're dead, why not hang out where there's a whole bunch of really good energy?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, really positive energy. The 10th Avenue Theater has like about 5 or 6 ghosts there, and it's always the same people because they always have the same reactions. I can tell you based on the activity which ghost it is, because I know them that well. And people will say, well, why hang out here? And I'm sitting here thinking, like, well, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, it's positive. It's a lot of positive energy. A little bit of dramatic energy, so I imagine it might be like watching a soap opera to these ghosts sometimes.
Oh yeah, it would be crazy. We have a theater here, the Orpheum, that has an electrician that fell to his death back in the 1930s. It's still seen working because he's still got business he's doing, so he hasn't crossed over. And there's a man in a white tuxedo and a woman in a long dress. And actually somebody posted, one of my friends online posted a picture of themselves standing with their arms up in the theater with all the seats in the background. And I zoomed in on this little corner where there's a ghost like sitting in one of the seats at the back. And I said, so you think you were by yourself? And I put an arrow beside it pointing at it. And she goes, holy crap, where did you see that? And I said, yeah, it's just the location you're at. They're always being like seen in photos and things. It was kind of cool. Yeah, nice. Theaters are great. Theaters are really fantastic. You mentioned the Philip experiment. Mm-hmm. Do you want to tell my listener a little bit about Philip Aylesford, or what the experiment was?
Yeah, so I actually got to see one of the tables from the Philip experiment a couple years ago. It was actually really interesting. I'm trying to remember the woman's name that brought it with her. I was in this ghost hunting conference, or this paranormal conference in Bedford, Pennsylvania, and one of the speakers had one of the tables from the Philip experiment, and all the participants had signed the bottom of the table. I was like, oh, that's so cool, and I got to touch it. Anyway, I was so excited. I'm like, so you know you're a paranormal nerd when.
Yeah, I'm kidding. Yeah.
It's one of those, like, even if you don't believe in the experiment, I mean, it was so monumental in paranormal research that you can't help but geek out when you're in the presence of one of its tools. So anyway, in 1972 in Toronto, Ontario, there was a group of people led by a mathematician and a psychologist, and they wanted to. This is really the dumbed down version, everybody, the 101 version, very high level. They wanted to create a character or create a ghost. And they wanted to do it, well, initially they didn't do it through a seance. It eventually evolved to that. But they created this person. They gave him a name, Philip Aylesford, and they gave him a whole history. He had a very robust military career, and he was knighted at the age of 16. He was involved in the English Civil War. He became friends with Charles II. He was also a British spy. He was married to a woman named Dorothea, and then had a lover who was accused of witchcraft and burned at the stake. And Philip ended up committing suicide at the age of 30 in 1654. So
this is all created, right? This was a bunch of them got together and built the fictional character,
which actually is very similar to how actors create a character. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I have a whole thing on that. But yeah, so and at first, because I believe they were meeting about once a month or once or twice a month. And this took some time. I mean, it's not like they started doing this on Monday and then 3 weeks later, oh, hey, there's a ghost. This took a significant amount of time. Now, it wasn't until they started doing this as more of a traditional seance that things actually started to happen. Like there was table vibrations, breezes, echoes, rapping sounds. I think they even had a portrait of Philip that somebody had drawn up. And the table, one of the tables, like was starting to really like. I mean, I'm not a big believer in table tipping, but if you like watch some of the videos from this, a lot of them are reenactments. But even then, I mean, you look at this and you're like, wow, the table did that. Okay. It's truly fascinating. And that's a lot of the reason why I believe that when actors are creating a character or a show is creating a character and all that energy is going into creating these fictional people, that's why I think sometimes there's some energy that remains. But anyway, so they did the experiment, and actually it inspired dozens of other experiments around the world. I think there's one, it's like the Twinkie experiment. There's quite a few others because it was that like groundbreaking and monumental. I was a little sad though that after the experiment was over, like that was it. Like they just stopped. And I was sitting here like, if you actually created something here, was Philip still there thinking like, hey guys, where'd you go? You know, or where'th thou you all be, you know, go off to? I don't know. I mean, I can't speak.
Can't speak the lingo of that time. British. What?
I mean, I can try Tudorian, Elizabethan era. I could try, but this was, I think, before Elizabeth. Yeah. So. It was about running around the same time because Shakespeare was born in 1616 and Philip was born in 1624. So, you know, I just went super theater nerd there. Anyway.
But one of them were really born and the other one wasn't. So that's the other thing. Yeah,
that's the crazy part. Oh, no, Shakespeare died in 1616. So this would have been post-Elizabethan. Yeah. I think my grad school mentor just got a shiver up his spine. He doesn't know it. He's trying to figure out what happened. Anyway, yeah. So, but I wondered, like, is Philip sitting there like, hey, I'm still here. You created me. Or, well, at this point, Philip really believed he was a real person. And especially when talking about his lover, apparently he would get exceptionally upset, which would make sense. Yeah. So, but again, it was all fictional. This was not a real person, but it became a person, you know?
Well, now, why do you think, in being an observer of the experiment, why do you think a being, a energy would come through and basically attach themselves to that persona, if that's the case? Or how do you think an energy could be created with a conscious mind?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I think maybe a few things could be at hand. One, I've done a lot of research and interacted with ghosts who kind of forgot who they were. So I don't know if maybe during the Philip experiment, some wayward, forgotten ghost came around and was attracted to that energy and adopted that persona. Or all those people, I mean, because there is a significant amount of people that participated in this experiment. They all came together and brought all of this collective energy together, and almost like creating a human being, it just sort of developed and grew with this consciousness and adopted what it was told. I mean, think about how we humans are, born and created. We're given a name and we're told what's going on around us and we're told who we are and how to act and X, Y, and Z. So, yeah, so I think it might be similar to that. I mean, if we're going to look at the way energy is created, or at least transferred, because I also believe that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. In this case, energy is transferred and adopts this new persona, so to speak.
Interesting. Yeah, we're talking about the Phillips experiment from the 1972. People Google that and do some research on your own, because that's a very, very interesting, thought process to actually do that and create a seance, and then have seances or sessions based on a character that you've created yourself.
Yeah. Well, it's very similar to the tulpa beliefs. That stems in Indian and Tibetan Buddhism, where you create a being or object through spiritual and mental meditation.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This actually has some religious base out of it in Buddhism. And they can also be known as thought forms as well, although we kind of get into some going down another rabbit hole there. But some people think that maybe tulpas or thought forms are the reason why kids have imaginary friends, if it's not a ghost. Mm-hmm. And I find that incredibly interesting as well, because this tulpa is basically created through intense sessions of meditation and spiritual reflection. And I mean, I didn't sit in on the Philip experiment, but I imagine that there was a considerable amount of time, in his creation. And same thing that happens with actors and their characters. There's a significant amount of time spent, creating that person taking up a lot of your mental energy and power.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So here's some more to throw it in that kind of vein. If you think there's something really scary in the basement, could you create something even more frightening than the mouse that was making that noise when you start creating in your mind? Your imagination runs away with you and you start building this thing in your head.
Oh.
Does it then exist?
That's a good question. Now, depending on how much time you're spending on creating this, I mean, I'm a little hesitant to say yes to that, unless you're really spending a lot of time unintentionally creating this monster in the basement. Maybe you're projecting some of your own insecurities and worries and creating your own kind of monster out of it, which people have done. Mm-hmm. Especially for those who don't know how to cope with trauma in their life or cope with an unresolved situation in their life. We tend to unintentionally project it and sort of create our own little warbled little monster out of it, so to speak. So we've actually had a few cases where that was the case, where it was like, okay, we're not dealing with a person or elemental or anything like that. We are literally dealing with someone's own psychological distress, like literally right here. So I think, if you are dealing with something potentially scary and you don't know what it is, and you kind of fill in the gaps with your brain and you spend a significant amount of time on that, then you might be creating your own little monster there.
Yeah, there's some discussion too about poltergeists as being man-made. Mm-hmm. on created by a lot of negative energy in a building or within a family structure or something. Mm-hmm. Somebody going off a little bit on the deep end creates a being out of nothing.
Yep.
So I wonder if it's the same thing.
It could be. I'm really, and this is going into the parapsychology side, I'm really fascinated with our mind's relationship with our environment around us. So,
well, if you believe in manifestation, it's just another way to manifest. You're just manifesting something that's probably you don't want hanging around. But see what I'm doing? I'm dragging your kicking and screaming into a whole other side here. Hey, here's one for you. What's the difference between a paranormal investigation, where you're all standing around with a bunch of gear and in a dark room in the middle of the night, and a seance?
Ooh, well, at least at a seance we have a nice table and a chair to sit in.
Right. Don't you? Sometimes I go to a house, I'll sit at the dining room table. Come on.
Well, and a dining room table is also usually familiar for a spirit. I mean, we've all eaten at a table at some point in our existence, whether that's a prison table or table at home.
What we're doing, we're all sitting around. A bunch of us are asking questions, and if you've ever been to a seance, the questions are the same.
It is. Give us a sign of your presence, God. Anyway. But I think with a seance, though, your energies are a little bit more focused. Because usually it's a situation where you're either sitting in silence for a little bit or you're grabbing hands. I feel like seances can be a little more centered. Whereas with a paranormal investigation, depending how many people you're with, sometimes it's like, okay, scatter, and hit up the walkie-talkie if something's happening where you are. But you're right. We are asking the similar questions, if not the same questions. I feel like with a paranormal investigation, though, they can be a little disjointed, meaning you could be separated, or you're sitting on a floor. Or in my case, you're sitting sometimes on a floor of a building that has black mold, and then you don't know why you have a sinus infection after a ghost hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So sometimes I love the idea of a seance. I've only done a few in like, hey, we're going to try to talk to a ghost. I've done like the dramatic reenactments of seances, and I always get super giddy because of them. Because I'm a geek, and so, and plus with seances, you may have the equipment, you may not, but you're definitely not holding any equipment in your hands. It may be off on the sides for like surveillance purposes, but even then, I don't know. That's a good question. They actually had me a little stumped there.
Yeah, if you think about it, next time you're doing your investigation, if you have 3 or 4 people, put them all in the same room. Mm-hmm. And focus, and you've got yourself a seance.
Look at that.
Yeah, right. People, so I talk to some paranormal investigators. Oh, seance, that's for people that are weird and they sit around and they blah, blah, blah. I don't believe in that stuff. Myself and my 2 partners, we will sit at a dining room table though in a house and ask all sorts of questions, and I shake my head going, so it's a seance. No, because I don't quit that. It's like, dude,
different.
Come on. All seance is it's a French word for session, for God's sake. Like, dude, it's just sitting down and trying to communicate with somebody who's dead. So aren't you doing that by sitting in the hallway in the old hospital? Well, yeah, but I don't like that word seance. Well, then okay, we'll call it a paranormal investigation.
Yep.
Dweeb you. We are talking to Alex Matsuo. Hey, arigatou gozaimashita. Sorry, again. I go back to high school, which is bizarre. I grew up. The visible minority in my high school were Japanese Canadians, and so I
nice.
learned how to. I'm supposed to have been learning French in the 8th grade, and I learned how to swear in Japanese.
Oh, there you go.
And asked where the bathroom was. Please go to our website, Alex Matsuo. It's again MATSUO, alexmatsuo.com. Go, please Google the heck out of her. Go to her YouTube channel, Alex Matsuo, on YouTube, and she's going to be putting in a few more paranormal related videos. And they're not, they're only 20 minutes, half hour long. They're not going to take up a lot of time. You can watch them while sitting on the bus on the way to work. Download a couple of them and see what she has to say, and keep track of Alex and what she is up to with her group. Now, do you have a fancy name for your paranormal group?
Our team is called the Association of Paranormal Study.
Oh, that sounds like it's in some college somewhere.
Maybe it should be.
And you're all wearing those robes like on Harry Potter.
You know what? I would be okay with that.
Don't get the black t-shirts, get the robes. Okay? Every paranormal team has black t-shirts. Do not get black t-shirts. Always get the robe and have a house on it. And a wand. You need a wand, too, if you're going to do paranormal investigation. And a thermal imager.
My gosh.
Get a thermal imager and a wand. A piece of string and a recorder. When you guys do your paranormal investigations and you sit back and you go through your evidence, actually, what was the most the coolest thing you ever got. And I mean photographs too, because I know there's a specific television show that's been on for many, many years, which is quite popular, has a real jackass with a flat-brimmed ball cap in it.
I wonder who you're talking about.
I've yet to see them get a photograph of a ghost, where paranormal groups that I've been involved in will go out on a Saturday night and get 3 photos of a ghost. It's
Isn't
bizarre.
that crazy?
Yeah, I know.
Isn't that crazy?
This television show, mind you, their overnight lockdowns are only 2.5 hours long, but that's a whole other issue. It's good that they have those shows that are getting people involved and getting them to understand there might be something on the other side. There's that, and then what they really do, which is complete bogus. But but when you go through your evidence, tell me some of the coolest stuff you've got.
Okay. We did get something caught on our flare camera. Flare.
Fleur.
Flare, flare, flyer.
Fleur. F-L-I-R.
Oh, so like for the French flower, fleur or flare. Wait,
Fleur.
no.
Forward-looking infrared.
Okay, there you go. So we were working on a residential case, actually, and we were dealing with something inhuman. I wouldn't say a demon, but definitely something inhuman, and it wasn't nice. And we were in the client's bedroom, and we were on the back wall where her bed was, and we just see this. My case manager took a picture, and we look at it, and you literally see this creature hanging out on the wall. And we're like, okay, take another photo and let's ask it to move. And it moved. So it's like, move up, move down, move to the right. It was cooperative. And I'm sitting here like, okay, well, that's interesting. It definitely looked worse than how it acted. I think we were dealing with something that wanted to be this big tough thing, but it kind of had its tail between its legs by the time we were done, because we were like, you can't be here. And plus, I'm pretty sure my mom was with me during that investigation, and she could put the fear of any deity you want in you when she was alive. So
your mother, who wouldn't let you watch those spooky shows or anything to do with woo-woo.
Yep.
Yeah, I know she's on the paranormal investigation with you.
Yeah, she actually came through on an investigation in Gettysburg, of all places. She came through, and I'm like, okay. That was unexpected, but we also realized it was Mother's Day when that happened, so it was like, don't forget your mother on Mother's Day, literally. So, literally. Let's see. Another thing I got was a photo, and this was in Gettysburg. I was on the battlefield. Oh, I'm trying to remember. The name. I was on the edge of a forest. It was named after the first general that died during Gettysburg. If y'all give me the first general that died at Gettysburg, what was his name? Reynolds Forest. And I was taking some photos of the tree line that was lining the paved road. And I was just taking photos of the trees because I was like, oh, this is pretty. And I had my DSLR, so I had my Nikon, expensive Nikon with me. And I took some photos, and I saw something sort of stand up through the lens as I was shooting. And I'm like, well, that's weird. And then I go through and look at the pictures, and you can literally see like this human like shape, but it's made out of balls of light. And it wasn't an orb. They weren't like orbs from like lens refractions, because I'm a photographer. I know what these orbs look like. It literally looked like this being made out of orbs, and you can actually see a shadow behind it. So meaning it had mass. So yeah, that one's crazy. That one might be my favorite. And I've even showed it to fellow photographers, and I told them what kind of lens I was using, and they're sitting there like, I don't know how you were able to get this. So.
Oh, wow. One of my favorite guys out in Gettysburg, a guy named Mark Nisbet, he used to be, he's an author, and used to be one of the guides for Gettysburg, worked for the government or worked for the parks. And people would come to him and say, "Oh, you have the best reenactors. They're so like real." And he'd look at them and say, "Yeah, we don't have reenactors here, but we just saw an entire troop walk by." Yep, there you go. And if you go to his store in Gettysburg, I can't remember what the name of his store is, but it's right downtown. He also does candlelight walking tours. Very, very cool guy. But there's photographs in his store on the wall. They're taken by the tourists. These aren't like the ghost kind of people. These are tourists taking a picture of their two kids and then in behind them are two Civil War soldiers. So he's got a lot of cool stuff in there. The neatest thing I've only been to Gettysburg once, but it was kind of cool that my friend and I were standing on the battlefield, and it was a Sunday, and we heard in the distance, boom, boom. And I looked at her, and she looked at me, and I said, "They don't have cannons here anymore." And she goes,
"Yeah.
You heard that too, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And we talked to one of the guides, and they said, "Yeah, you heard that too, huh? Didn't you?" Mm-hmm. Yeah, we hear them every so often.
Jeez.
Just cannon, like literal, an old school cannon went off, and I know what that sounds like because we had two 1800s cannons in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Training Academy in Regina, Saskatchewan, which was built in 1870s. We have two, I can't remember, called 3-pounders or 6-pounder. Anyway, they get these two cannons that used to fire them for when we're on parade and stuff like that. So, yeah, the report of these cannons, that was kind of cool. That and the ticks, but other than that, I remember wood ticks and the cannon going off. But yeah, if anybody's out in Gettysburg at all and you want to check out a guy named Mark Nesbitt, Nesbitt, he's a paranormal investigator and has a ton of history on Gettysburg and the location. And check out his store and maybe take one of his candlelight tours. He's a professional tour guide, worked for the Gettysburg battlefield for a long time before he retired, and the stories he has are absolutely fantastic. We should go there again. Alex, you should do that.
Yes,
I'll
let's
meet
go.
you there.
Heck I'm down.
Airfare from Seattle to there, I think it was, my return airfare was like $420 to Harrisburg.
That's not terrible.
But I won't stay in the hotels anymore. There was a hotel I stayed at for the Ghost Conference, and it was made out of brick and had no Wi-Fi, and it was very expensive. And like literally 3 doors down was a 1700s home. Was Airbnb for like $200 a night, and it slept 6 people or something. I thought, okay, next time I'm going to go there because that's the cool part. And that's one of the things that I want to do too. Is like I have a Patreon account for my podcast, and if people donate $3 a month to it, if I get 2,222 people, which is like what was that, $6,000 a month kind of thing, because I'm retired and I don't need money, what I'll do is I'll draw a name once a month and give that person a trip for 2, and if they're like ghosts, it will be to Gettysburg.
Oh wow,
kind of thing.
That's awesome.
And it'll be an Airbnb. The drawback is I'm going with you. And the other thing, what's been really cool though, is I had a fellow who films all the documentaries and a few movies around here. He's going to come out with his crew and actually turn the paranormal investigation. Well, like I will set you up with paranormal tours and paranormal investigators in Gettysburg, but we'll actually film it as a documentary.
Oh, that's awesome.
People who I draw their names for, it would be their documentary about their paranormal investigation.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And we'll post those on my YouTube channel and their YouTube, or what, it'll be posted anyway. So that's the idea. And if we get up to, there's a limit of 3,500 people max to donate money to. And when we hit 3,500, then if you like ghosts, I'll send you to Glasgow, Scotland. We'll do international tours. Or if you're from the UK or Australia and you want to come to America, and it's not ghost stuff. It's if you want to go to a UFO conference. Let's say you want to go to the International UFO Congress in Phoenix. I'll do the airfare, accommodations, VIP passes, all the books that the VIPs have there, and I'll send you up to Sedona to go with Melinda Leslie on a UFO tour there and actually see UFOs, which is very, very cool. I've done that. You've got to do that if you ever get to Sedona.
Yeah.
Go out with Melinda, and again, we'll film that as a documentary too. So anyway, that's the plan, and I because Gettysburg is such a cool place. Especially if you are an American and you're interested in the Civil War, dude, if you haven't been there, then you're not that interested in the Civil War.
It's like you're not even doing the Civil War right. Like,
yeah,
come on.
I mean, like that is like the cliche tourist attraction.
Yep.
With all the other hundreds of battlefields around, but still, that was a good one, and the town itself is really, really interesting. But I think because of the amount of... Oh, yeah, I was going to tell you this. I actually brought a ghost home with me. Accidentally brought a ghost home with me. A 17-year-old kid who died day 2 of the Battle of Confederate.
Aww.
And he came home and he hung out with me for a bit. And the psychics said that he just wanted to see boats. So he came out to the West Coast. And I went to see a psychic and kind of double-check on how my Civil War veteran was doing, and they said, he went home. He went back to Gettysburg. And I said, well, how the hell did he do that? Because he's a ghost. He can do that.
It's like, how does the afterlife work?
Yeah, how does this work? He just went back. It's where his friends were, and they were still busy. He doesn't want to cross over because a lot of his friends are still fighting. Like, the battle is still on.
Oh, God, that's terrible.
So they're still there doing that. And there's this great story about a fellow from... he's the commander of the 1st Texas Volunteers or something, but a real raggedy looking guy. But he's constantly being seen helping tourists who, are looking at their little pamphlets on where to go next. And he comes over and says, "Oh, you lost? Yeah, I'm trying to get here. Oh, just around that corner there and down the road." And people are seeing him, or he's showing up in photographs. And they identified him. They know who he is. But he's quite helpful on the tours. But, definitely have to go there again. That's fun. Now, you in North Carolina, what kind of cool places do you got going? Charlottesville, obviously, because it's on the water, and
so we got the USS North Carolina, which is in Wilmington. Right. That's World War II, and then we have this place in Hamptonville, North Carolina, called the Trivia Clinic. Very haunted place. There's about 70 ghosts there, and there's a reason for that. And let's see, we also have the Henry River Mill Village. If any of you have seen the Hunger Games movies, that was where District 12 was filmed. So those scenes were there. And let's see, we got a lot of stuff in the mountains, like around the Asheville area. Let's see. Yeah, we got a decent amount of stuff happening. So...
Oh, you've got the history. Yeah, you've got... which is kind of interesting, too, is like, how old is... I don't want to get... I think we're kind of we're coming up to the end of the show at this point, but I have so many questions. And I want to bounce off you for your opinion. We don't really see ghosts from 1120 AD. We see them mostly from the last 500 years.
Yeah.
Or 400 years. Is it... What happens? Do they just kind of... It's like someone said, will you ever see a ghost of a dinosaur? It's like, no. Don't be silly.
Right.
But what happens? Like, is there something... Does that energy eventually just get absorbed into other things?
That's a great question, and that is something I have often wondered myself because... Right, like why aren't we seeing ghosts of dinosaurs? Why aren't we seeing ghosts of cavemen? It's one of those things. I sit here and I wonder, am I running on an expiration date both physically and spiritually? Or does that energy from that early period of time, does it kind of get buried, so to speak, by newer hauntings or newer ghosts that come around?
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that too. It's of course, they're lower. Dead people are lower vibration, and that vibration from somebody 1,000 years ago compared to somebody on Wednesday is going to be different. Yep. That vibration is continuing lower, unless they end up attaching to you, which is a pain in the ass. But or no, I shouldn't say attach. That's more elemental beings will do that. But it is. Again, it's those questions. We're not going to know the answers until we die.
Yep.
And then it's like I interviewed a guy. What was his name? Jim. Oh, never mind. It was I've totally lost his name. But he used to write all about the Kennedy assassination and the conspiracies behind that. Mm-hmm. And he died a few years ago, or maybe a year and a half ago. And I thought, when I heard that he passed away, I kind of smiled, because I thought, okay, now he knows. Mm-hmm. It's finally he made it. He's got it figured out, and he probably, as he goes to heaven, there's Kennedy standing there, hands him a drink, and says, "Okay, this is what really happened."
Right.
It's like, oh, damn it, I was off, or I knew that, or I knew it. I wish I could go back and tell everybody that I was right. Well, no, you can't. Now that you're here.
No, you can't. You're here, and get comfy.
Well, I am going to let you go, Alex. Alex Matsuo, please go to her website, alexmatsuo.com. Check out her YouTube. Check out your newest YouTube video here, how to ghost hunt, or ghost hunting for newbies. And it kind of parallels really good with her new book that's out, and we'll have to get you back on here and have another chat. Again, your new book is called what?
The Brave Mortal's Guide to Ghost Hunting.
The Brave Mortal's Guide for Ghost Hunting. Alex Matsuo, alexmatsuo.com. Check it out. If you want a signed copy, go to the website and order it through there. You will have to pay for shipping, so try not to live more than 3 or 4 blocks away. And she'll write her bike down and drop it off. She'll pull it out of the carrier in a brown paper bag with some string on it, and drop it off on your porch with a signature. Thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, it was. I'll talk to you soon.
I'm condemned to the long, endless night. And I live in the absence of light. And my shadow has life of its own. Watching you while you sleep all alone.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. And hey. Let's be careful out there.
Far over the snow, what are those voices? They sing as they go, what are those voices? Look up for the mountain. Because somebody hide, somebody better hide through the hail, like a pack of angry wolves on the trail.
Investigator.